Just recently, WordPress introduced a new editor called Gutenberg. Gutenberg is a visual editor for creating posts and content. If you were to go to the admin dashboard and create a new post, then you should see something like this. Gutenberg introduces a more modern and intuitive editing experience like never before. For the past decade, WordPress used TinyMCE as the main editor. It worked, but it was lacking in many areas. If you've used WordPress before, then you are probably familiar with it. If you don't know what it is, then that's perfectly fine. It's currently being pushed out of WordPress, so it isn't required to know. Regardless if you're a fan of Gutenberg or not, it's part of the core now, so it would be beneficial to know how to extend it. During the creation of this course, I struggled with how to approach Gutenberg development. It's not just the editing experience that has changed, but the development experience has changed as well. Certain hooks aren't encouraged as much anymore. The Shortcodes API and metaboxes are being replaced with something called blocks. If you've taken my course before, then you may be familiar with these concepts. If not, then that's perfectly fine. I do go over some of this stuff later in this course. The reason I'm mentioning it now is because you may look for more tutorials online, and those tutorials can be outdated because of the introduction of Gutenberg. On top of some breaking changes, Gutenberg also has a higher learning curve. Gutenberg is built with React, and therefore you should be confident with your JavaScript skills. From the beginning, I told you that you should have a solid understanding of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. However, we're going to begin diving into more advanced topics, so I don't expect you to know these advanced concepts. Before you can get into Gutenberg development, you need to know what arrow functions, imports, and destructuring are. That's what I'll be teaching you in this section. If you are already comfortable with these topics, then you can skip this section and move on to the next one. This section will completely step away from WordPress to discuss these important topics. Before we get started, I do want to clarify that there are two ways to approach Gutenberg development. The first approach is by using ES5 or simple JavaScript. This is the more simpler approach. This is how we've been creating our plugins and themes thus far. No fancy tools or libraries. You just write regular JavaScript and you're good to go. The problem with this approach is that it makes your code harder to read and manage. By now, you should know that I'm all about organization and management. While it does require a little more work, organizing your code allows for better scaling. By using plain JavaScript and PHP, you make Gutenberg development more difficult for yourself. The second approach is by using React, Webpack, and Babel. This approach has a higher learning curve, but it's well worth it. You will find it easier to manage and organize your code. This is the solution we'll be using for the rest of this course. Once again, you're not required to know these things. I will teach you how to use technologies and how they specifically tie to WordPress. Alright, let's get started. I'll see you in the next lecture.